Good evening and a very warm welcome to all our viewers to the New Year edition of Cedrus Knowledge Series. The Cedrus Knowledge Series we started during the lockdown in the pandemic times with an objective of having one speaker each month, speaking on a variety of topics which ranges not just investments and finance but also health and overall well-being. We'll now play a short video of Cedrus Wealth Partners. Uh, for our 37th edition, it's an absolute honor to have with us today Advocate Vandana Chavan. Uh, she is the member of the Parliament Rajya Sabha and former mayor of Pune. Thank you, ma'am, for being a part of this New Year edition. It's an absolute honor to have this opportunity to interact with you and connect with you.
My pleasure.
We'll
My pleasure. Thanks for having me over.
Likewise, ma'am. The pleasure is all ours. I'll now play a short video to further introduce ma'am. We all are aware how the climatic change is affecting the globe and how is it closely related to our economies today. Uh, Today's topic revolves around this climatic change that we all are facing today. And Vandana ma'am, we all are looking forward to hear from you. So I'll hand over to Mr. Nilesh Bajaj for taking the discussion forward.
Good evening, viewers, and good evening, ma'am. Vandana ma'am is very fondly called Vandana Tai in Pune, and very appropriately, she's done a lot for the society, and we have seen her work, which is making a very meaningful impact to the society. Uh, Good evening, ma'am, again. Uh,
Good evening.
as a part of the New Year edition, we just thought that why not have something which is impacting the world dramatically, and people are seeing it in every aspect of their lives. We are seeing climate change, which is now more or less a reality. Monsoons are getting delayed. Winters have become short, summers have become more intense, and this is all to do with the way we have behaved with nature. And this is something which is our today's topic. Uh, the introduction has already talked about what ma'am does, uh, and so the thing is that I'll not take too much of my of her time and talk about climate change than we speak. Let her speak about it. In fact, we have a few questions to be asked. And so, ma'am, my first question to you is actually, in your opinion, what are the most pressing challenges the world faces in terms of climate change?
Okay, Nilesh, at the outset, once again, let me thank you for having me over at this Citrus series. Let me also, at the outset, make it very clear that I'm a lawyer by profession, so not an expert in environment, but this was a visit to a conference in Montreal way back in 2005, where it was a 3 day conference of mayors from all over the world. And from day one, from the inaugural function till the valedictory, everybody was talking about, in 2005, it was how the US had not signed on the Kyoto Protocol, which meant that you had to reduce your carbon emissions. So you had to, every country had to recognize that there is a problem and we have to address it. And the second most important thing that they were all talking about, that beside the North and South Pole, which is a hotspot for climate change, how India and Bangladesh are most vulnerable to climate change. Now, when I heard this, my antenna were up because I had never heard this. We had heard about North and South Pole being hotspots, but never thought or never had known that India and Bangladesh are the second hotspots on this globe. And that's what got me reading and doing a little self research and then becoming passionate about this issue, that if I understand that these are vulnerable spots, well, then I also need to understand it and probably then take it to the people to make them understand that we are in a tight spot and we need to do something. We all know that, as I said, we only knew that it was the North and South Pole which was vulnerable earlier, and the polar bears, the glaciers were melting, and the polar bears did not know where to perch themselves. Their space was getting lesser and lesser, and it's still happening. The glaciers there are melting at very, very fast pace. But we are witnessing it in our own cities now, in our country, in our states, and in our cities. We see the rising global temperatures. There are heat waves which happen in the summer, keeping people indoors. We have seen extreme weather events. It could be very cold. It could be torrential rains. Pune itself, if you take it as an example, we had never ever experienced storms, but that's what we experience now in Pune also. So these are things which are happening. Sea level is rising, disease is on the increase, there is extinction of species. So all this is happening and it is impacting not only the environment, but I would say the biggest challenge because of climate change is the environmental challenge, social challenge, and also the economic challenge, because all this has repercussions on the social and economic status of our country and the globe as a whole. When people get displaced from their houses, or say a farm is totally devastated, a standing crop is just lying horizontal the next day, it hits him badly. So it's a social impact, it's an economic impact, and that's how we see farmers committing suicide, the country's economic status getting a hit. So all these challenges definitely are on all three fronts: environmental, social, and economic. So apart from this, we need to understand what is climate change and then understand how do we address it. There are agencies all over the world. In fact, countries have laid down their roadmaps as to how they want to address it, the mitigation, the adaptation, how do we move towards bringing down our greenhouse gases, how do we develop resilience in the surroundings, how do we work in unison? So it's not a problem of only Pune, Maharashtra, or India. It's a problem which has to be worked out and addressed holistically in unison. And therefore these are all the challenges that we are facing because of climate change.
Yeah, very aptly said. And earlier economies developed at the expense of environment. And I think now, if we do not take environment into consideration, the environment will devastate economies. This is what I think we have been seeing in so many countries now. In fact, my second question is is something to do with your first one only. Is that how do you envision the most critical milestone or goal for the global community in the next decade to fight against climate change?
So, Nilesh, let me probably go a little back into the history, not very much, but a little, because a lot of times I see very cynical remarks as the government needs to do something. It's always that the government needs to do something. We forget that the four fingers are pointing towards us, and what is it that we need to do is very conveniently not looked into. So let me tell you, or the audience here, as to the countries have been talking about environmental issues from way back in 1972 when they first met at Stockholm. This was a United Nations conference on human environment. Then it took about 20 years. There was a 20-year gap in 1992. There was another conference in Rio de Janeiro, which is called the Earth Summit. And this was one of the landmark meetings of the United Nations where countries from all over the world converged, what is called as the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is a very important body of scientists, experts, and all other community came together to actually contemplate what is climate change, what are its impacts, what is it that is going to happen in the near future, and what is it that we need to do. So there have been consistent meetings of all the countries to lay a roadmap as to what we need to do. The latest, of course, the big one is 2015, the Paris Agreement, which is also called the COP27, where the key themes that every country had to give its national determined contributions as to what is it that my country is going to do to bring down my carbon emission. So on the government level, at the international level, I think all countries are very much in sync that we need to do something. Now, how much they are doing is a different aspect, but that we need to do something, that it's a serious issue, is something that is now well established. Unfortunately, this has not percolated to the citizens at the grassroots, or not just citizens, even I would say the local self governments, who are the ones who need to act. The Rio conference in 1992 very emphatically brought about something which was called Agenda 21, which said you think globally and act locally. So that means it's the local governments really who have to translate things into action. If they have to take steps or have to develop infrastructure which needs to be seen through the lens of sustainability. And therefore, this unfortunately has not happened to the extent as it should happen. And therefore, what I would say would be the milestones in the next decade is to really understand what the international bodies or what our country as a whole has committed, and how is it that we are going to take it forward to address the issue of climate change. One rather four key takeaways in the Paris Agreement one is mitigation. How do you bring down your carbon emissions? How do you bring down your GHG emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions? Adaptation, adaptation, because what devastation we have caused is already there. And what is going to happen by way of its impact, it's going to happen. So how are you going to address it? How are you going to adapt to those kind of climate change impacts? Third is finance, very important, because it's the developed countries who are really responsible for the greenhouse gases which are causing the climate change. And if the developing countries have to develop, then it's always going to be whether development first or the climate change adaptation mitigation first. So it'll have to be the developed countries who will have to finance the developing countries. And there is a formula, there is an amount laid down, but unfortunately, that has also not been forthcoming. And the fourth very, very important thing is collaborations. Till you don't collaborate by way of technology transfer, by way of hand holding for a certain project, by way of uh, guiding or sharing best practices, I think it would take a long time. So collaborations at the international global level is very important. And so these have been the takeaways from all these conferences. It's only that it has to translate into action, and strictly. It's not just it has to be a paper tiger. It has to convert into actionable points where at every level, whether it's the center or state or local government, which has to really make things happen. So that I would say would be really setting the milestones for the next decade.
No, I mean, I think, this is more of a chicken and egg story, where
Absolutely.
development or environment, what comes first. And I think till now, environment has always come second. It's always been, development and at the cost of environment. And that is the reason why, we are talking about it, because, it's impacted countries which are now developing. The developed countries are the ones like what you mentioned, who are actually who have taken us till here, and now I think they need to fund other countries, so that we have minimal impact of climate change. In fact,
Sure.
in fact, one more thing is, we are into wealth management and investments. I think the impact the environment disasters can cost on GDP is something which yet is not ascertained. And I think it will be more and more if we don't do something and set a milestone today. In fact, my next
Very
question,
true.
ma'am, yeah, my next question, ma'am, to you is actually in your experience, how can we strike a balance between economic growth and environmental conservation to sustain a more sustainable future?
As you rightly said, Nilesh, in the earlier comments that you made, that till now it was always the economic growth, and everything was counted or is still counted in the terms of GDP, your development and your growth in terms of GDP, which does not take into account anything to do with natural resources and the kind of depletion or the kind of pollution, the air, water, the disease, the cost of health. Um,
Absolutely.
our government spends in crores for health issues. We just had the COVID, and it's always said that climate change will get a lot of vector diseases even in future. We'd never heard of chikungunya earlier, and now we see it, happening quite rampantly. Dengue is on the rise, and the spread is much more. So these are all vector diseases which are being impacted. So that cost is never ever included in the GDP. I think we have to change it. Time has come where we need to change the parameter of GDP and come out with some other parameter which includes the cost of natural resources that are used into the product or into our entire economic system, and also the kind of pollution that we have, the cost on health, and of course the climate change impacts. Those are the major ones, because one storm or one sea level rise, and entire village has to be moved away from where they stayed, new housing, etc., etc. The kind of landslides that happen, I mean, it's rampant. All kinds of climate disasters are rampant, and therefore that cost never is accounted in the GDP. So that needs to change drastically. And as you rightly said, that it's always been the economic growth first, and the environmental conservation comes as a corollary. Yeah, just happens. I still remember when I was a corporate, the municipal corporation, and I spoke on environmental issues. A lot of my senior colleagues would say, "Oh, ये तो hi-fi issue है. This is all your fashionable issue." This is not a fashionable issue. If water is polluted and you don't get clean water, you and me can afford a water bottle of Bisleri where we spend a 20 rupee or whatever. What about the poor? Can they afford that water bottle? I mean, in my presentations, I often say that if it is business as usual and the air pollution is as worsening from day to day, tomorrow probably you'll have to have extra compartment in your child's haversack with the books, the dabba, the water bottle, and oxygen cylinder. And if this is business as usual, probably today, as you are also smiling, people normally smile, but this can become a reality. Because 20 years back, you or me asked our grandparents, would we have to buy water? They would have had the same smile on their faces and say, water and buy it, but we have to do it today. So it'll be the same thing with oxygen. Today in Mumbai and big cities, they have oxygen parlors where only the money can go spend an hour in that oxygen parlor, have a drink, and probably breathe in pure oxygen to purify their blood system. But this nobody else can afford. So these are things which are now non-negotiables. If you have to have economic growth, you cannot neglect environment conservation. It'll have to go hand in hand. So now the myths that both cannot go hand in hand, I think, has been kept aside. We have till now mindlessly and recklessly consumed. Our behavioral patterns have been such that we have actually robbed the earth of its natural resources. We have just vomited poison into the air. But now that we realize that this is happening, we need to be sensible, we need to be more conscious and responsible. And therefore, I'm happy that even corporates and people, especially Gen Z, has become, the culture of sustainability has just ingrained into them. Everybody is talking about sustainable products, sustainable lifestyle, but this needs to spread even further. And as I said, that it's a non-negotiable. Economic growth will have to come with environmental conservation, and that is the importance this topic really carries. And I look forward that we see this sea change happening in the near future. Internationally, they are talking about it. Nationally, we have policies in that direction. It's only the individuals at home and workplace probably who have still not actually ingrained this idea about sustainability, which we will have to do fast, because
Absolutely.
it is time ticking away.
Yeah, very true. And in fact, inclusive growth is something, which is a part of our Hindu system also, where, we see to it that, along with our growth, the nature also survives, and that also flourishes, which unfortunately has not happened because of the greed of human individuals. And
Absolutely.
that's the reason why we are seeing, what is happening right now. But ma'am, can you tell me how the government, businesses, you have talked about individuals also, as to, you can't just blame the government for everything. Even individuals have to have responsibility. How can they collaborate and effectively promote sustainability and combat climate change, on a global scale?
When we talk about India and our Indian ethos and our culture, basically, it is ingrained in us. I still remember, and it still happens that we use clothes that probably my older cousins used, and then it just goes on, and you don't feel anything about it. Even as far as you go to the villages and you see them segregating garbage, they would compost their garbage. It doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't happen in cities. Pune, it does happen, but other cities, one doesn't get to see such segregation. Trees is something that we worship. So, as you rightly said, it is in our culture, it's in our DNA, in the Indians. But I think we need to do a lot more. As far as governments, um, business and individuals are concerned, I think there is a top to bottom approach certainly happening, which is good because, as I said, internationally, the government heads or their representatives come on the international platform. They talk about sustainable measures, they talk about what are the things which need to be done, policies which need to be drawn. And ultimately it trickles down to the state governments and the local governments. So, and then now individuals, we know that only this year Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi has also come out with a life mission, which tells you 75 things which one needs to do to change your lifestyle. Simple things, but it is trickling down to the grassroots, even through NGOs. My own NGO, through Pune Climate Warriors, we've reached out to more than 80 schools, 6th, 7th, 8th standard, where we are creating awareness on climate change, and through them, through the children who we consider as change agents, reaching out to their parents and the neighborhood. So this change is certainly happening, and I think there is a good collaboration between the government, the business, and the individuals. um, of course, I mean, I would still say a lot more needs to be done, because again, I would reiterate that at the local self government we need to do a lot, because ultimately policies and laws made by the central government or made by the state government, if it only remains on paper and does not translate into action, it really doesn't take us any further. So it's the local government which has to understand. Just to give you an example, about 6 7 months back, I there was a awareness program being conducted by the All India Institute of Local Self Government, which is based in Mumbai. But this was happening in Pune. Pune is one of the better municipal corporations, and we had about 200 engineers who registered for that 2 hour conference that we had. And well, one lecture was on green buildings, and the other, which I had a presentation, was on climate change. So after the whole exercise, we asked them, how many of you all knew about climate change? And that every developmental project of yours, whether it's the river improvement, whether it's a road, whether it's a rainwater drain, whether it's lights on the street, whether it's a footpath, whether how do you cap it, whether interlocking blocks or a tar road or a cement road, whatever you do has to be looked through the lens of sustainability and climate change adaptation. So, how many of you all knew this? Not a single hand went up. So, this is the level of understanding as of now. I wouldn't blame them. It's just that capacity building has to happen at all local self governments levels to really understand what is the kind of infrastructure we require. So the collaboration is there. I'm very happy to see a lot of companies, corporate sector, has themselves come forward to put this in place, to make sure that they have a green policy in place for their companies, so that they consume less, they have more eco-friendly systems of operations, they have maintenance of their machinery, so that they do not consume too much electricity, which will then in turn have more carbon emissions, etc., etc. So these responsible and conscious practices are coming in, and it's a very, very welcome step.
Wonderful. In fact, I just wanted to ask you on the CSR activities of corporates. How much priority are they giving? Because through the CSR activities, they have a budget. Each company has a budget which they can allocate. Is it coming to environmental related things also?
Well, I would say that definitely companies have to think of this much more, because till we don't make each and every individual aware on what is climate change, how it impacts us, what are those simple things like putting off the light while going from one room to the other, segregating your garbage, composting it, planting a tree, one tree every year. A family can plant a tree every year. Simple things like that. But till the individual doesn't know it, we will never see the light of the day that every individual is actually bringing down his or her carbon footprint. And I would really like more and more companies to contribute to this cause. Creating awareness, I think, is one of the major things. Once you tell them what's happening, I mean, the impacts are there for them to see. You don't really have to prove that ye ho raha hai, wo ho raha hai, wo ho hi raha hai, वो दिख रहा है. Only thing, how do you address it and why is it happening? That simple science of climate change is something that has to be taken across for them to understand why this is important and how we need to address it. Imagine every individual contributing to bringing down their carbon footprint. Collective efforts lead to a meaningful change, as they say. So imagine everybody coming together, even voicing issues regarding environment which are related to the municipal corporation. When you can't be silent spectators and ho raha hai hone do, no, you cannot make that happen. If there are
Mm.
trees being cut, I think you have to collectively say that no, this cannot be done. You have a better alternative to cutting down trees and having not having that road, or having an alternative road, or improving your public transportation system. That's one of the major things today, the biggest bane of our city. If you ask anybody ki which is the biggest problem in our city, everybody would say the traffics.
Very
The
true.
traffic is a huge problem, but the day will have to come when we know from our vehicles, you and me, when we want to go to some place, we will use a public transportation system rather than use our own vehicles. So till we don't have a good network of metros, BRTs, buses, last mile connectivities, it's just not going to happen. And therefore you see this classic example where the BRT on the Yeroda road was pulled down. I mean, it's a disaster. You have to try to address problems which this BRT is facing. And you pull it down. Why? Because the cars have no place to go. The cars jolly well find themselves a solution. You cannot do away with a public transportation system. So these are things which unfortunately people don't understand. Unfortunately, even some of the elected representatives are not understanding what is the main idea behind this. So I think it's very important to do capacity building. I don't blame anybody. They have not been exposed to this issue, and this exposure is absolutely required. And that's again where I come, that CSR for such kind of programs needs to come in to make more and more people reach out to these stakeholders and make them understand that this is how you need to look at a certain issue.
Absolutely, and I'm sure we expect that more CSR funds, go towards commitment, towards the environmental. Uh, you have been running such a wonderful, organization, the Pune Climate Warriors, and it's you and your family actually. You've been running it, and I've been seeing, the kind of activities the organization is doing in getting awareness, environmental awareness among the kids. And I think that's so important when at a young age, when you are aware of, the environment, and you become socially responsible also towards it. It becomes so important that, that helps in their upbringing and the way they look at the environment at the expense of growth. Uh, in fact, my next question to you is related to this, because I have not seen, organizations like, the way the Pune Climate Warriors. I've seen the way it is run, but I've not seen too many of these kind of activities from other stakeholders also. In fact, so what role do you think, education and awareness programs, the one which you are doing, they play in fostering a greater understanding of sustainability issues among the public. So, what is the role they can play?
I think it's as I mentioned, it's very important that every individual understands, because they are seeing the impacts of climate change. But why, how, and what is it that we need to do is something that we have to take across. And therefore, the programs that we have been taking through Pune Climate Warriors, and it's been a wonderful experience seeing those little children understand the issue and wanting to do something. And even when we had competitions, we had parents coming over and saying, we had only heard of climate change and global warming. We didn't really know what it is, and it was great to understand it from our child. So here the child becomes the guru for the parents to really make lifestyle changes. I think the knowledge and education is very important, as far as through these awareness campaigns, because number one, it makes you have behavioral changes. Everybody is talking about lifestyle changes where you individually bring down your carbon footprint. So that little behavioral change which you want to make comes automatically by understanding what are the problems. Simple example I would like to give you. We have umpteen of examples of the children But when I was a corporator, five of us used to cycle to municipal corporation. Not every day, but at least 5 days in a month we did it when the general body meeting happened. So we were five women who used to cycle.
Hmm.
On other days, there was a colleague of mine, a municipal corporator also, and I would tell
Hmm.
him that I would like to share your car. We would do a carpool. So these are absolutely possible things. I used to go on a buying spree when I saw nice saris. Now I think twice. Do I really need it? So these are little things. When there's a tap which is on, flowing
Hmm.
water, and somebody is just brushing or shaving or washing
Hmm.
their hand, and they don't put it off, automatically I rush into the room and want to put off the tap, at least till it's not used. So these are things which automatically come into you, and I think that's very important. I think twice before I have to travel long
Hmm.
distances. I miss a
Hmm.
lot of marriages and functions only because of this. So I bear the brunt for this. That you never came for a marriage, you didn't come for a birthday party. But then, if I can adjust it with my other timing, I do it. But if I have
Hmm.
to travel all the way from Baner, say to Amanora Park, I wouldn't do it, because
True.
I just think about how much pollution I'm going to. So this just becomes a behavioral change, and I think
Hmm.
that's what is most important. Of course, I
Hmm.
not that I'm absolutely saaf sutra and don't pollute at all. I'm sure I'm responsible for that too, but
Hmm.
try to do as much as you can. That's number one. Secondly,
Hmm.
I think you can take informed decisions whenever you want to, as I said, buy something, do something. You have
Hmm.
more informed decisions, and the informed decision part is becoming more and more important, because see a lot of products which are now sustainable products which are coming in the market. And when you have a choice, A or B, even if the B is costing a little more than the A, but has come from a company which has followed sustainable ways of production, I think I would go in for B, because they have polluted the environment lesser than the product at A. And this would probably enthuse manufacturers like A then to follow suit, that yes, we also need to be responsible and conscious manufacturers to make sure that our product is more sustainable. And then you can fashionably showcase that my product is more sustainable. So that's another thing. The third thing, which is very important, I think, is advocacy for
Hmm.
policy change. Government makes mistakes, but I think we must have the grit and determination and be empowered enough to say, no, this is wrong, and we don't want it as citizens. This will pollute, bring in more air pollution, or whatever.
Hmm.
So I think that empowerment of citizens is very important. Gone are the days when people would say कि मैंने तो tax दिया है भर दिया है, so now it's the municipal corporation or the government who has to do its job. No, the paradigm of governance has completely changed. Every individual is expected to come forward, form their own neighborhood groups, have people's participation, and take responsibility of their neighborhood. The municipal corporation would then just be of a facilitator in that respect. So
True.
to reach that position, you have to have be empowered and understand, have that awareness, have the knowledge, have the education as to what is it that I can do and what is it I need not do or cannot do. So
Hmm.
I think education and awareness campaigns help a great deal in that
Hmm.
respect. There's
No,
several other things, but these are the three major: community engagement, people's participation, good governance, behavioral change, informed decisions, um, and so many more. I think just empowers you.
No, absolutely. And I think like what you mentioned is that even if you become aware that the kind of damage you're doing to the economy and to the environment, on the just because on the name of development, is something which will definitely make a lot of people conscious of the fact that they need to see that they have an inclusive growth along with the environment, and
True.
not at the expense of the environment, in fact.
Very
Uh, and it's so wonderful, your the Pune Climate Warriors is doing an amazing job, and hope to see many more in different cities. of such organizations which are actually educating and creating awareness among children, who are in the future going to shape the future of the country.
Sure,
Uh,
and we need more volunteers. So, Nilesh, through this platform, I would like to make an appeal to your audience that we want people to volunteer help in this entire project, reaching out to schools, educating the youngsters, and I'm sure it'll give you a lot of satisfaction. That I can ensure.
Definitely, and I'm sure we will do our little bit, to see that the awareness is created, and we ourselves become aware as well as have the responsibility towards the environment. In fact, what advice would you give, others to make a meaningful impact? This is my last question to you, before we close. So, what would you advise all our viewers, as to how they can make a meaningful impact in a small way towards the environment?
So basically, Nilesh, I think first is to educate yourself, make yourself more aware as to what is happening, because climate change everybody knows, but probably a lot of people don't know why it's happening. What is that simple science of climate change? Because a lot of people, when you say light band kara, eka room banda dusra room mein, put off the light, fan when you're they say, I mean, how does it connect to climate change? Or segregate your garbage, let it not go to the landfill side. So how
Hmm.
does it connect? I mean, what is that impact, that methane gas and the carbon dioxide, even to production of electricity, where it's being emitted, is going into the atmosphere, and that layer is creating that greenhouse effect, which is actually heating that entire earth. So that little science, they need to educate themselves to understand what to do and then to tell others. I'm in the group of the Climate Reality, which is former Vice President Al Gore's initiative. And
Hmm.
I had the pleasure of being a part of his training program in Delhi. And in that, it was a collective decision that we took. What is the takeaway from this meeting that we had? So we
Hmm.
decided we have to speak to at least 10 people on climate change every day. I don't have to give them a lecture or don't have to do a presentation or this kind of
Hmm.
a talk, but simple
Hmm.
things like, yes, it's happening, this is the reason, this is what you need to do, even if it's over a cup of coffee. So if you can once educate yourself, you tell 10 people to at least be able to change their lifestyles. If you can give presentations, nothing like it, but otherwise just 10 people is not much. Each one needs to reduce their carbon footprint, make a conscious effort individually at home and at workplace. Practice mindful consumption, I would say. Mindfully consume what you're doing. Too
Hmm.
much packaging of a product. If you go out shopping, carry your own bag instead of
Hmm.
taking that plastic. Simple things. Conserve resources, as I said, electricity, water, choose sustainable products, plant trees, and adopt a eco-friendly lifestyle, raise awareness, support green institutes, green initiatives, support NGOs who are doing this work,
Hmm.
be water wise, embrace minimalism. I think these are some of the things. And last but not the least, vote for the environment. We have elections around the corner. So please, please, uh, somebody who is environmentally conscious, and even if it is not, make sure that that person becomes environmentally conscious by advocating
True.
these ideas. Because if your elected representative is not going to be environmentally conscious, I think we'll have a hard time. So I think these are the little few points that I would say that these are some of the takeaways that we can consider for
Absolutely.
today's program.
So, in fact, we are ending the new year, and a lot of people take resolutions.
That's
And most of
yes.
the most of the resolutions are that I need to lose 10 kgs. I need to wake up early in the morning. Okay, everything is me, me, me. I think I
Right.
hope through this platform we will have a lot many more people who take resolution on how they can actually make a meaningful impact on the environment through little bit of their changes in behavior, which you just mentioned in your last this
So
thing that
Nilesh, they can put down in their comment box when they listen to this. They should put on in the comment box what's their green resolution for 2024. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Absolutely. So, we hope and we appeal to everyone that yeah, definitely you take resolutions for yourself, but think about the environment and see that you become more environment, you become more responsible towards the environment also. In fact, thank you very much, ma'am. It was such a wonderful year end, you can say, by talking to you on something which is a topic which a lot of people discuss, but I don't know how many people really implement, in fact. Uh, so I hope, through this channel we'll be able to see that a few people at least change, their behavior towards the environment. In fact, so thank you very much again. I now pass it on to Unnati for audience questions.
That was a wonderful session, ma'am.
Thank you, Anil.
Your advice on how small changes can make such a big difference. Small changes in our day-to-day life, like not doing an over shopping or switching off the lights when we move from one room to the other, and the use of public transport. How it can make such a big impact when the climate change is concerned. So thank you very much for your time to grace this event. On behalf of Cedrus Wealth Partners, I would like to thank you and to all our viewers for tuning in large numbers. I think, as Nilesh sir said, this topic is not much addressed, but it's the need of the hour today when we see climatic change becoming a global reality and it's affecting our lives day in, day out. So thank you, ma'am, for addressing this topic and wishing all our viewers a very happy new year. We'll return next month in the New Year's with a new topic and a new speaker. Thank you very much.
Happy
Thank you,
New Year,
ma'am.
everybody. Yes.
Yeah, wish you too a very happy new year and a happy new year to all our viewers too. Uh, See you again next year. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Bye. Thank you, Unnati.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.